Cell 408-inch fat iron head is an obese man. In this regard, he is likewise a big hindrance to everyone. People who have recently been jailed are his favorite victims. Fat iron head usually plays with them if they are in good condition. After all staying in jail for 3 years, most people stop caring whether they are male or female. I'm not sure what the exact proverb is, but I suppose something along the lines of, a thirsty dog will drink from any pond. Every time this district comes together for supper, these perverts start acting out. Newcomers are more likely to be treated specially. Fat Iron Head has already played 4 of his toys to death. His favorite type of boy is the thin and handsome one, just like Xiao Qingrong. At first glance, he knew he wanted to bully this one until he cried. Most importantly, under normal circumstances, these types usually have no resilience and can only let themselves be bullied. Xiao Qingrong stood at the door, looking at the men outside. The lustful eyes of these people made him very unhappy. No one has looked at him with these eyes for a long time, because those who have seen him in such a light have already gone to hell. His hand had slipped into his pocket, and his scalpel was readied. Although the scalpel is thin and small, it can cause a lot of damage. Because it is so sharp, it would have already ripped the clothes of an untrained person. But Xiao Qingrong is different. He's already accustomed to the use of a scalpel as a weapon. If 618 can provide a blade, he can even hide one in his mouth. After all, life in an orphanage is not easy. There are always people who want to target Xiao Qingrong. Host, the man is coming in. Is he going to hurt you? 618 shivered. At a time like this, it really wished it had a body. If it had a body, it could protect its host. Instead, he has to sit and watch as his host is hurt. Fat Iron Head smiled and walked in, casting a shadow and blocking any light from entering the room. Then he reached out and closed the door directly. When he was playing, he didn't want other people to see. The people outside saw the door closed and felt bored. They knew that this newcomer wouldn't escape the hands of Fat Iron Head. They walked on towards the canteen to wait until he was done. At this time, in the cell, Xiao Qingrong faced Fat Iron Head with no expression. Such a clean and delicate person is so unlike himself, making him admire it more. He rubs his obese hands together and flies towards Xiao Qingrong. Although this man was fat, his speed was fast. As the other party rushed over, Xiao Qingrong dodged, letting Fat Iron Head crash onto the bed, breathing hard. In his hand, Xiao Qingrong clenched his scalpel, yet there was no movement. He let the other party rush again, as if playing with his prey. After a couple times, Fat Iron Head found Xiao Qingrong to be just as fast as himself. So he did not rush again. Instead, he came at Xiao Qingrong with a fat fist. Xiao Qingrong dodged, the hand with the scalpel also reached, slashing faster at the other's artery. Fat Iron Head was unconcerned about the pain and therefore missed the blood. He hit Xiao Qingrong again, causing him to stretch out his scalpel for another rapid slash. For a person who likes to use a scalpel, studying the human body is something Xiao Qingrong has long had engraved in his mind. So he could have easily just cut the throat of the person in front of him. Unfortunately, there's no beauty in that. If he used a scalpel to cut the other person's throat, he would still be covered in blood and unable to properly appreciate the job of his scalpel. Oh, terribly filthy, completely unlike Xiao Qingrong's aesthetic. Of course, even though he was a killer, he still wanted cleanliness. Fat Iron Head bled harshly, and soon he felt himself becoming weak. When he found out that something wasn't right, it was already too late, for both hands were completely unable to stop bleeding. What weapons are you hiding? He roared. Xiao Qingrong looked at him with a smile. No matter what I've hidden, if you don't stop the bleeding within 10 minutes, I don't think you'll ever be able to hear the answer. He had cut the arteries in the wrists of the fat man's 2 hands. It was fairly easy for Xiao Qingrong to do this. When he was finished, he turned and walked towards the door, as if he wasn't afraid of the dying man behind him. Fat Ironhead's eyes flashed. From his clothes, he pulled a knife. The knife flew wildly behind Xiao Qingrong, but his opponent did not even look back. He dodged forward, and that 5-centimeter-long scalpel was directly lodged in the right eye of Fat Ironhead. He screamed. The pain made him lose all rationality, not even sparing a glance towards his prey. Both of his hands twitched, wanting to reach up and touch his eye because the pain and irritation were too intense. There were prisoners who were looking outside, close enough to hear the screams, and didn't even look back. These things happened on a daily basis in the district. They were used to this and were just happy to not be victims. Xiao Qingrong's brows wrinkled in irritation, and he spoke with quiet impatience. 618, can you retrieve my scalpel? 618, who was listening to the man's painful screaming, was stunned for a second. Suddenly, it felt like it didn't know a thing about its host. It obviously thought its host was a lifelong winner with a fortune of $10 billion. So why was he so calm after hurting someone? However, in such matters, it can only be biased toward its host. Host, are you asking me to retrieve the scalpel now? In theory, as long as the system gives something, it can be brought back to the system space, no matter where or when. Yes. I can't just let my scalpel stay in such a dirty body. Xiao Qingrong thought this was obvious. Suddenly, he felt he was a bit hungry. He reached out for the handle. He went out, completely ignoring the man behind him. If the other party didn't see a doctor and was found dead, could they really blame him? Fat Iron grunted in pain as Xiao Qingrong walked out of the room. The thing in his eye had disappeared, leaving a black hole and a face full of blood. It was enough to scare anybody, man. Xiao Qingrong found no one in the hall. As a newcomer, he had to find the canteen by following the signs on the walls. By the time he found it, the cafeteria was full and everyone had started eating. When they saw Xiao Qingrong, they went wide-eyed. How long was that? Why did this newcomer come out so early? What happened to Fat Boss? Some people were just as surprised, while a few others found themselves on a different opioid. The district had long been divided into two groups, those that followed Fat Ironhead and those who thought him sick and only a bully who only knew how to throw his weight around. Besides Fat Ironhead, there were three other bosses. One is the elderly Ceirin Yi. It was said that outside of prison, Ceirin Yi had a gang. This was his 8th year in prison, and no one had dared to offend him. The district was practically owned by Ceirin Yi. The second was Liang Ceirin, who was physically strong and capable of doing some damage. He was under the protection of special forces prior to entering the prison. It said he offended a senior officer and was sent here for 5 years. The third was Fan Yen Hui, who was once a wealthy young master. Because his mother died too soon, he became the victim of a scheming illegitimate child and was brought here. So far, he's lived here for 3 years. He identified Ceirin Yi as his godfather, which was mixed into his current status. The canteen branch of the district shows this obvious division. The minions sit together in their groups. Ceirin Yi had a separate table, while Fan Yen Hui and Liang Ceirin sit together at a table. Xiao Qingrong did not look at the crowd. He was hungry and looking to replenish his energy. At the canteen counter, he was able to view a rich buffet. He asked, "Could I have braised pork, greens, a chicken leg, and some rice?" The guard who passed the meal gave him a deep look. He also recognized newcomer number 7543, who had just arrived. He didn't really expect the other party to take care of the fatty. After the meal was prepared, Xiao Qingrong scanned the crowd. He walked right towards an unoccupied table, attracting everyone's attention because it was old Ceirin Yi's table. Xiao Qingrong sat down, completely fearless. He did not even ask to sit, he just plopped down opposite Ceirin and began to eat. Ceirin was already 68 this year. At the age of 60, he had entered this prison. He had never seen someone so arrogant in his 8 years that he would not look him in the eyes. Fan Yen Hui, who was sitting at another table, noticed the new kid sitting at his godfather's table and immediately stood up. His godfather's palm knocked the table twice as he prepared to advance, signaling him not to move. Xiao Qingrong completely ignored what was going on and ate intently. His pale and dainty fingers were completely incompatible with the rough look of everyone who had survived. Ceirin, who was known to have a dog's nose, smelled the bloody smell from Xiao Qingrong and thought to give those hands a glance. Fat Ironhead has always liked to play with newcomers, but now he had an interest in this child who had remained so calm. Did the big Ironhead die in your hands, child, because there was no smell of blood if someone had been killed? Xiao Qingrong, who was eating, heard the voice and turned to look at the old guy sitting in the exposed overhead light. He smacked his lips, his voice giving away a hint of pleasure. Not yet, but soon. He likely underestimated the kid. They couldn't honestly believe this boy, who wasn't even an adult, could overwhelm Fat Ironhead because it couldn't be stated that Fat Ironhead became a district ruler by chance. His capability was not bad. It was something that no ordinary guy could match. Sadly, this man had met Xiao Qingrong. Ceirin's gaze changed towards Xiao Qingrong, but he remained silent. Most of the prisoners in this prison were strong and muscular. It couldn't be said that Fat Iron had got to be a district lord because of luck. His ability was not bad, it was something any average man could not beat. Unfortunately, this man had met Xiao Qingrong. Ceirin's eyes began to view Xiao Qingrong differently, but he did not speak. This child, who casually ate, found himself quite interested. And what was Xiao Qingrong thinking? He had started listening to 618. Host. This old man in front of you is the ambassador of the largest city in Anyang. He's super powerful. In addition to being a gangster, he also earned a PhD in finance all by himself. He came because he had committed financial fraud. Through financial fraud, he and a group of individuals in Hong Kong acquired $1.8 billion. Ceirin took the entire sum. Do you know where that money is now? 618 words piqued Xiao Qingrong's interest in Ceirin's tumultuous past. He asked in his mind. Where did the $1.8 billion go? A business named Dragon Entertainment cleaned up the money 8 years ago on an account controlled by Ceirin's illegitimate daughter from abroad. Coincidence? Host, you just murdered her with her husband's daughter's illegitimate son. This was a stroke of good fortune. Xiao Qingrong finished his meal quietly. Even after learning a mouthful about the large man in front of him from 618, he remained fearless. When Xiao Qingrong finished his lunch, Ceirin laughed. There is always a genius in every generation. The child was incredibly brave. Child, this district's residents call me Ceirin. Do I have the privilege of bearing your name? He said it with unexpected compassion, as if looking at a grandson. Xiao Qingrong stares at this man and talks without fear. Xiao Qingrong, number 7543, hello, Ceirin. Please look after me in the future. Ceirin laughed at such a gentle greeting. As they covertly watched Ceirin's conversation with the new kid, the folks on the side warned themselves not to behave rationally. Meanwhile, Fat Ironhead's comrades were looking for someone dubbed Fat Ironhead. They dashed through the prison cells. When they arrived at Qingrong's cell, all they saw was Fat Ironhead's corpse. Fat brother. Fat brother. They phoned. They rushed down to help him up, only to see a pool of blood. One person screamed. The terrifying sight of Fat Ironhead's right eyeballs had frightened him. He stumbled backwards, becoming cold at the image of such a guy nonchalantly conversing with Ceirin in the corridor.